Welcome to the HR Community Podcast. My name is Shane O'Neill, founder of Civitas Talent, the HR and HSE recruitment community. Each episode, we will host HR leaders and discuss their journey and discover best practice HR solutions across the HR industry. Whether you're a CEO, HR executive, or operating across the wider HR space, this podcast is for you. Please like and subscribe, and don't forget to comment and share your reviews. Enjoy the episode. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the HR Community Podcast. This morning, I'm here with Andrew Lafontaine. Andrew is the partner over at Mercer Pacific and partner for consulting services and workforce solutions. Good morning, Andrew.
Morning, Shane. How are you?
I'm very good. Thanks for jumping on this morning. I know we had a little bit of a chat before we jumped on about a couple of things, and I'm sure everyone's ears perked up when they heard workforce solutions, given what's happening out in the world of the workforce at the moment. But I guess before we get into that, Andrew, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are and your role over at Mercer.
Sure. So currently I'm working at Mercer leading their workforce solutions team, which is, another way of saying our HR consulting business. For the Pacific, so for Australia and New Zealand, and have been doing that for about 3 years.
Okay.
Mercer's probably well known to most people for our reward consulting and our salary surveys and a few of other key things, but we've really been sort of doing a lot of work recently with clients around the whole skills piece and the transformation. So that's been great.
Awesome. And now we'll get a bit more into that in a little bit, but before we do, really interesting background and journey. Obviously, you've worked in a number of various different organizations, especially some of the larger, well-known household brands. Tell us a bit about where it all began, Andrew.
Yeah, look, my journey's probably a little bit different to everybody else's when it comes to HR. I never sort of had any particular, career aspiration to move into HR when I was young. I actually started off and got into uni doing music, of all things.
Wow.
But then decided I was going to teach. So I did a teaching degree, but then landed my first proper full-time job in a learning function with AXA, back then National Mutual, really helping and providing education services to the financial planning businesses that they had, professional development, etc. So the teaching job never came about. And then it just really went from there. I then moved into doing a little bit more leadership work at Telstra. And then the much broader HR career started when I moved into NAB, where I sort of had an OD role. So that included things like culture and workforce planning and a whole bunch of other stuff. So, and then just over the years decided that I really enjoyed consulting as well. So I've probably... I do sort of, 4, 5, 6 years in a HR role, and then I think I might go back to consulting, and then I go do consulting. So I've been on the consulting side for the last 10 years now. So it's the consulting bit I love because you get to work with so many different clients. You get to see and understand, what's the latest thinking, what's the latest initiatives, how organisations tackling it. So you feel like you're always learning when you're consulting, which is great.
That's really cool, yeah. And I guess as well, you've got that unique combination of having worked on the, let's call it the in-house side and the external consulting side. Do you think that has given you a bit more of a holistic picture of how things operate and how you can, I guess...
Yeah, look, there's no doubt about that, Shane. I mean, when I first started on the consulting side with Accenture, I was amazed that... how many consultants probably didn't realise the amount of, I would argue, the amount of pressure and the operational component to the roles that when you're sitting in HR that you have to live and breathe every day because the business is really relying on you. So you do get very little time to sit back and think more strategically about the business, which is one of the challenges of working in-house in HR. So for me, when I'm working with clients, I'm really always mindful that, yes, they might be trying to balance off either, trying to drive some larger project work or larger transformation or a technology implementation or an EVP, whatever it is. But their day-to-day operational component doesn't go away. They still got to deliver services to the business. They still got to deliver all of those on all of those metrics to the business. So I'd like to think when I'm working with clients, I do have a better appreciation and understanding of exactly how this all needs to come together.
And I guess if we're to lean into the L&OD space that you've been involved in, specifically, and kind of open it up from there, how evolved have you seen that L&OD function over the past decade? Particularly the fact that you've been in consulting and you've been in the in-house and you've been in NAB and the bigger brands.
Yeah, look, I think what I've seen the change, and it's not going to be a surprise to anyone, but I think HR was initially predominantly, especially when I started, and it was predominantly about administering a process, right? So whether it be a learning process or a payroll process or a performance process, there's been a real shift around the fact that yes, those processes still need to be administered and rolled out in organisations, but where the shift has come is, in the first instance, come with the technology. So the technologies have absolutely transformed those processes, automated them, made them more efficient, which has allowed HR to really think more broadly about how do they and where do they add value. Because, if you can take 80% off time from a process that you once did, well, where can you spend the rest of the time getting value to the business? So it's meant HR people have had to become real digital natives, really understand the tech, the AI, and I know AI's that acronym's been thrown around everywhere, but it is coming, and it's while the use cases are only a handful at the moment, it's really going to come and it's going to change everything. So I think that's where the biggest change has been around the tech. But I think the other big change has come that the business's expectation from HR around really supporting and driving business outcomes is much more heightened. If you think about businesses' expectations of their personnel department, as it was called back then, it was literally, let's just get the people on board, pay them, right? And that was pretty much it. And now it's so much more about that genuine, attraction and retention. So how do we get the best people on board, and how do we keep the best people? And that's got to do with the whole HR life cycle, because we know, and great leaders, great CEOs, great C-suite know that it is the great people who are going to drive those business outcomes, and they clearly look to HR to say, are we doing everything we possibly can to attract and retain people? So that correlation between great people and business outcomes is really well and truly understood now by the business.
Yeah, agreed. And I think as well, and you may or may not agree, the dynamic of the workforce has changed so much as well. And the demands there. I mean, even if I was to, everyone does the contrast between post-COVID and now, but that's literally only a couple of years, really. And the changes in diversity in the economy versus the workforce is just it creates a lot of demand for organizations to figure out, I guess, where they focus their attention. Do you find you're having some of those kind of conversations at the moment with businesses?
Yeah, there's absolutely no doubt about that, Shane. I think the one size fits all approach to managing employees just does not work anymore. And so organizations in every industry really need to think through what are the strategies they're going to keep people here? What are the strategies that are going to attract people to come here? And what are the strategies that are going to get the most out of people? Because I think that's, and maybe the pandemic has highlighted that, but people are wanting a much greater balance between work and life. And so organizations thinking through all of that. And when I say organizations, HR. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
That organizations are, the business is looking to HR to solve some really, really complex generational issues. I've got a 22-year-old son who's just started work after finishing his uni degree, and his expectations of work, he thinks, his company only has a requirement of 6 days a month.
Yeah, wow.
I still can't get my head around that. And that's his first job ever. Now, I've said to my wife the other day, but you know what? Maybe that's just the way things are now.
Yeah.
I've got to stop overlaying my view of ways of working as the right way and really start. And so what we've got is these generational changes that have happened where some people still wanting to be 5 days a week, other people acknowledging that, you can get the best out of people 2 days a week.
Yeah.
Massive changes, massive challenges, and they're all falling to HR.
That's it. Exactly. Yeah. And even to your point earlier, just building off even that example with your son and other organizations that I know and recruit for, there just can't possibly be a one size fits all, because if it works for a business that do 6 days in the office per month, another organization are doing 5 days on site and it works for them.
Yeah, and that's where it comes back to the technology as well. The technology absolutely enabled this. Businesses were forced to adopt it during the pandemic. So there is no going back. There's no going back. I personally don't believe there's no going back to corporate life. There's no going back to 5 days a week. We still also need to acknowledge and manage that there are many, many industries who are 5 days a week. And I often say to people, sometimes we need to realise that we're pretty privileged in corporate. That we have the flexibility that we do. My wife works in a hospital. She can't work from home. People in retail can't work from home. People on construction sites can't work from home. So I think the conversation also needs to be moderated a little bit to, they talk about the haves and the haves not in terms of choice.
Yeah.
So I think that there's that overlay as well for it.
I think so. And even from a HR perspective, and I hope a lot of HR practitioners that are listed will agree, is you sort of have to adapt to the environment that you're supporting. So if you're a HR manager in a food manufacturing, process manufacturing site, like you're probably best off to be present and on site to deal with the issues, but build that reputation and trust and be seen. So if any of the workers do have an issue, that they know they can come to you because they see you and they know you and they trust you and you've got a reputation. Whereas, if you're working from home full time and they don't know who's in HR or how to step over to them on the site, it creates a funny dynamic.
Yeah, it does. And I think that's part of, the working life is really understanding some of those nuances. I look at the consulting world now, coming back from the pandemic, clients always wanted us on site, working on site. We don't have any clients who want consulting on site.
Interesting, anymore,
right? Because they're not on site. So it doesn't make any sense for us to be sitting in their offices anymore while they're not there. So it's as I said, and every industry has their own nuances around that. It's the adapting to those and understanding those and getting the best out of your employees based on the specific nuance of work life is where everybody is trying to work through at the moment, because as we discussed, the one size fits all is not going to work anymore.
Exactly. And I know before we jumped on today as well, we talked a little bit about our own industries, and you're coming at it from that consultative perspective in workforce solutions, and I'm on the HR recruitment side. And I had been stalking a lot of your work and research and reports online over the last couple of months. But in one of the articles I read, which I found was really, really interesting, and you touched on a little bit there as we're speaking, is AI will be your best hire this year. So I found that quite interesting. Tell us a little bit about what you mean by that.
Yeah, look, I think I was actually talking to the Michael, who leads the digital HR practice for me here at Mercer, and the question I sort of posed to Michael is that when it comes to HR, is HR really thinking about how AI can influence, change, adapt the work that they're doing, versus are they looking to their IT function to provide them with the HR, the AI solutions? And I think that's the critical bit there, is that nobody knows their business better than the HR people. Sure. And it comes back to that comment I made earlier around HR needing to be much more digital natives. I think HR really have to be understanding and on the hook to actually thinking about the AI solutions that they want to implement in their business, and not necessarily looking externally, because nobody understands their business as well as they do. But for them to be able to do that, they need to really understand the AI. Now, I'm not talking about understanding the back end of the AI and all the coding and the technical components, but actually what can AI in various, I mean, the two use cases that everybody understands right now is Copilot and GPT, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Everybody understands that. So probably everybody in corporate understands those two. But there's so much more in terms of process automation and a whole bunch of other stuff. So, if you can get that right, then yes, AI might be some of the best hires you will make, through the course of the year, because what you're really doing then is bringing together the technology, understanding what people do, and understanding the depth of the process that needs to be rolled out, and bringing all those three things together in a way that, again, augments what the human does, not necessarily replace what the human does, and again, frees people up to do high value work. And I think, way back when we talked about the Ulrich model of, HR functions, shared services, business partner, COE, etc. That whole premise was to free up people to work on higher value activity and to push, the transactional work to a shared service center. In some respects, that iteration is happening again, but this time with technology.
Yeah, wow.
So, where can we continue to, focus on the transactional way in the most efficient and effective way, while we free up business partners, center of expertise, people to actually focus on the high value stuff to drive the organization. So that operating model piece is almost having its second evolution now through AI.
It's really interesting. And I know you're a huge advocate for the digital solution side as well, which combines really well with the journey I think that organizations are going through at the moment. On the digital front, I mean, I know in my world, recruit for fairly large enterprises right through to the small to medium-sized players. Often I speak to companies where they start to, I guess, entertain the idea of looking at systems and new HRIS. And I'll just take Workday as an example. And often they go through that journey where they go down the Workday route, they implement it, and then they kind of put their hands in there and go, okay, where do we go from here? Do you find that's like a COVID? And I'm sure people are here with their notepads and pens, but is that like a COVID challenge or issue that you face with some of your clients?
Yeah, look, absolutely. I think there's a couple of things that are happening on the technology front. So I think the first thing is that the technology is finally catching up to where HR functions have always wanted them to be. And if you look at the AI skills-based technology platforms like the 8Folds and the Gloats and the Rejigs, etc., for the first time now in the last sort of 3 to 5 years, organizations can all of a sudden get a full understanding of their skills in the organization in a live and a dynamic way that's generated by AI, right? So the HR is catching up, but what that means is that HR functions are really having to think through, how do we actually best implement this? How do we actually best roll this out to the organization to actually meet our needs, not the generic needs that, that were sort of sold to them? And I think it comes back again to me just really saying, HR functions absolutely need to become those digital natives. They really do need to understand very deeply the technology. And, with no, the reality is that HR functions haven't had to do that, similar to finance functions, similar to a whole bunch of different I mean, if you think about it, probably the one function that has best adopted technology is marketing.
Yeah.
If you just think about marketing used to be, we'll put ads in a newspaper and we'll send out flyers and we'll do all of those things. Then technology came around, and now you think about the CMO and how they're using marketing to attract clients, to service clients. I mean, that's where I think if HR can get to that when it comes to technology and its employees, that's when we'll get the step change in HR, the use of technology, because the things that we get on our social media, the way we're marketed to is really quite amazing when you think.
Oh, it is right? Amazing. Yeah.
But marketing departments had to make that transition from very traditional ways of marketing through to we've got all of this technology on, but when you think about that, when it comes to HR, have we made that transition as well? Probably not. Have we really used the technology in a customized way to engage with employees? Probably not as well as marketing have been able to do it, would be my sort of assumption.
I think that's a really cool comparison and analogy as well, because you're totally right that from the marketing perspective, how much that whole profession has evolved with digital. And I bit of a joke, but I could imagine if companies use it in the wrong way and started to assess algorithms of employees, they'd start to see HR would start to see a whole heap of stuff, particularly with people that are starting to plan their leave. But the other thing I wanted to ask you is, while we have the time, we talked a little bit about the journey, where you've come from, how it all began. We talked here a little bit about, what's kind of trending and current in the market. What are you sort of seeing for the future? Because I know, and I'm sure people are rolling their eyes when I say this, the future of work. What it's a term that keeps getting thrown around, but it is what it is. The future of work. What are you seeing from a workforce solution perspective?
Look, I think, and again, there's probably nothing new that people haven't heard before, to be honest, Shane, but I think the whole mental health is only going to continue to be, I'm not going to say bigger, but it's going to become even more critical, having people who are in the workforce who we like to use the word thriving at Accenture when we talk about engagement, because I think that maybe that old metric around having highly engaged people might need to be rethought through, because to me now it's about, do you have people who are really thriving in your organization? And that comes down to people having, really, really strong mental health across both personal and work life. So, and then how do organizations support that, I think, is going to be, continued challenge, continued opportunity. It's an opportunity as well as a challenge, because, as we know, mental health is a very personal thing for everybody. It's not a one size fits all for individuals. So it makes it a little bit difficult for organizations to have a strategy around that's going to be really personalized at that individual level. So for me, I think that's not going anywhere anytime soon, and is only going to be front and center of HR strategies moving forward. And then I think, the diversity piece is also, again, I feel going to accelerate even further. There's going to be more focus on organizations, all aspects of diversity. Is only going to be another, strong area that organizations are going to be able to, prove out that they really are, going down that diversity path. And then I think the final one we've touched on is, again, the technology bit's not going anywhere, right? Yeah. That's only going to accelerate. And, if I was new coming into HR, I would be all across, I would see technology as a core part of the tool set that I need to do to be able to do my job. Whereas I think for people who are already in HR and the technology is being developed, a lot of us potentially had seen that as an adjunct to our job. Whereas now it's just, if you don't understand the tech coming into HR, you're not going to be able to really, execute on the things you need to in a way that's really going to drive the best outcomes for the organisation. So I think it's that shift in mindset that, technology is not something that sits to the side of HR. It is absolutely in the center of it. And then we need to think about the whole ecosystem around that.
100%. And even as you were talking through those different aspects of the future work and examples, I was even thinking about the technology piece there as well. And I guess when you think about it, if you were to book us, mental health, diversity and technology, technology actually sort of cycles a lot of the best practice that we can get involved in both those areas. I spoke to someone quite interestingly recently in the US, and they talked about diversity there, and obviously it's a much larger market, of course, but they talk a lot more about how do we set up our organization to align with diverse individuals, as opposed to, we're just going to hire heaps of diverse people and have a diverse workforce and we're going to sing it from the rooftops. It's actually using technology and other ways to really enhance and create an experience for employees.
Yeah, no, absolutely, completely agree. And I think that's some of the challenges that organisations are facing, and that takes a really different mindset. I think that's the other key thing for me, for HR professionals, is coming at all of this with the right mindset, and that all of these things that are happening are all opportunities as opposed to challenges. Yeah,
definitely. A couple of questions before we wrap up, Andrew. What's your best lesson learned?
In life or in work, or probably both. I think for me, it's keeping focused around that concept of gratitude. I think we both, whether you're an HR professional or in consulting, you can sometimes lose focus about things in life. And I think just stepping back and having that attitude of gratitude can really be quite insightful in how you go about everything, both work and your personal life.
100%. What frustrates you, assuming there's something that does, or some things?
Yeah, look, I think for me, and maybe this is me being a little bit old school, but I think what frustrates me is when people don't show, when there's a lack of initiative. I think, while work can sometimes, there's bureaucracy and there's a whole bunch of other things that can get in the way, I think one of the best ways to break down all of that is just to show initiative. And I find when you can show initiative, and when I work with people to show initiative, funnily enough, we get to solve the problems. So for me, just people demonstrating initiative is critical, and when they don't, probably frustrates me the most.
Yeah, no, that's good. Interested. Last one for you. Influences in your life. Anyone that stands out as an influence, or has been an influence, or is an influence?
Look, specifically in my life, I think, like everybody, funnily enough, my very first manager, literally my first job, he was just a great, lead from a leadership perspective. He just taught me a lot, just about respect and how to do. I mean, I was just some junior person who just, was entering the workforce, but he put everything. He always had everything in perspective. He showed everybody respect, and you always felt that he was just a normal bloke. Yeah, and I think for me that's when I'm working with my teams, and I've managed really large teams across my journey. I hope people think about me that the best thing they could say to me was that Andrew was pretty normal. I think if we can all achieve just to be that, then work would be a pretty cool place to go.
100%. Love that. That's great. Thanks so much, Andrew. Well, I really appreciate you jumping on. That was really insightful. And obviously, for anyone that wants to learn and hear more, reach out to Andrew, because I'm sure you'd welcome any conversations around the workforce solution side. Maybe not all in one go. But no, I really appreciate your time again.
Love being on, Shane. Thanks for that.
All good. Talk soon.
Thank you for tuning in to the HR Community Podcast. Remember to like and subscribe and share your views and comments below. This podcast was brought to you by Civitas Talent, the HR and HSC recruitment community. Whether you're a candidate looking for a new role or organization looking to secure brand new talent for your team, please get in touch with us today. Thank you.